Well, hello, friend, and welcome back. Welcome back to the On to Purpose Over Paycheck podcast. I am your host, Mr. Troy. Hope you're having a great day so far. Wishing you well and prosperity and abundance today. If you haven't already, if you're just now tuning in, you caught this podcast scrolling through or someone shared it with you, make sure you hit that follow button as well as make sure you leave a rating and a comment. Would love to hear your thoughts about the podcast, what it's making you think, and would just love to start some engagement with you as well. All right, so we're on to our next episode. The title of this episode is Expansion Changes Your Identity, Whether You're Ready or Not. So we've been talking about my whole journey of moving from a secure paycheck in a career of over 24 years into doing something that I'm passionate about and becoming my own boss, running my own business, being my own entrepreneur, and building it from there. So welcome back, welcome back. All right. So today's episode marks a quiet but important shift in this journey, right? Because growth doesn't only change what you really do, it changes who you are allowed to be. So we're going to talk about that in this episode. And also part of this expansion, it usually catches people off guard. So we're going to dive deep into that and really what that honestly means. So when you start to have this expansion, there's some feeling of disorientation going on, right? Many people will think that the expansion should feel somewhat exciting. They feel it should be empowering, affirming, as well as liberating. But however, this expansion will often feel very strange. You're going to come into some unfamiliar territory, some unsettling things are going to happen. Like you don't quite recognize yourself yet. You're still kind of diving in, figuring out who you are becoming. Remember, you're moving from one identity to the next. And I've talked about on my social media platforms on Instagram and TikTok about the infinite amount of different versions of yourself that are waiting to emerge and integrate into the identity that you are, right? We've talked about like upgrading the software. We do that for a lot of our technology, a lot of our things in life, but we never really upgrade the software for ourselves, right? We stay stagnant in the identity that we have been there probably for more than a decade or more, right? We do that. So when you start looking at this expansion, you might not recognize yourself yet. And it's not because something is wrong or something isn't correct there. It's because this identity is beginning to stretch beyond its old shape. You got to understand that. You're going to come across where your identity is expanding and there's a lot of shifting happening, right? The old self is moving on. It's being integrated with the new identity that's coming in, right? So we have what's called the identity lag. There's usually a delay between what your life is becoming and what your identity is ready to hold. This talks about like your circumstances start changing, your opportunities start to expand, but inside you may still feel like the old version of yourself. You're feeling that challenge that you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, right? And we call this the identity lag. The identity lag. And it's one of the most uncomfortable parts of growth because what you are doing is you're letting go of the old self and you're integrating the new self. This part of the phase will feel unstable. When you start experiencing the identity lag behind this expansion, your nervous system starts to get confused. And we've talked about how a lot of this will deal with the nervous system. The nervous system starts to think, this isn't who I am. I'm not built for this, or something feels off. Those are the emotions that you're going to feel. Because remember, our subconscious mind, which is in our brain area, it does things automatically. But our feelings, when we feel something, that is a stronger signal of a shift that is happening in us. That is giving us what we like to call sometimes the red flags of what's really going on. So when you start having those feelings of like, well, this isn't who I am. Why did I leave my comfort? Because this isn't really who I am. Or I wasn't built for this. I wasn't built to be my own entrepreneur. I need structure. I need someone to tell me what to do. I need someone to live their dream, and I'll just help them continue to live their dream. Or there's that moments again, like you feel something's off. Like this doesn't feel right with me. That's because growth isn't wrong, right? The growth isn't wrong. It's because your system hasn't yet updated its sense of self. Remember, keyword updated. We talk about this. So this mismatch feeling will come in ideas of like the imposter syndrome, right? You'll having some anxiety. You'll go through some self-doubt. You'll have this urge to really shrink back. But those signals often mean you are expanding faster than the identity has integrated. When you have those moments, it's because the expansion is happening so quick that your identity is trying to integrate them. You're trying to figure this all out, right? And because when that happens, you will have this temptation to shrink back. You'll have this temptation to quietly self-sabotage everything that you're working for, right? And what happens when we start to self-sabotage, we start declining opportunities that are appearing. We will downplay our success. We will stay smaller than we need to be. And sometimes we'll start returning to the old roles that we used to have. It's not because you don't want to grow. It's because your nervous system is trying to restore things that are familiar. Remember, you're going to learn a lot about your nervous system. And I think that is one thing that we really do not talk about a lot is the nervous system. Your nervous system is going to go through changes. And because it's trying to restore things that were familiar, things that brought that comfort, right? And the reason it does that is because shrinkage feels safe to us. But when we start to expand, we start feeling this unknown. We start entering a realm that we've never really experienced. And so when we shrink back, it's never going to bring peace. What it does is it delays your integration. It will delay the process of moving forward and becoming who you are. So if you tend to do that, you're letting yourself become someone new. When you start to allow the integration to happen, right, you're becoming something new. Here's a truth that isn't talked about enough. You don't grow by upgrading your life. You grow by allowing yourself to become someone new. Let me say that again. The truth that no one really talks about. You don't grow by upgrading your life. You grow by allowing yourself to become someone new. And when you have that process happening, these new identities that are coming in this integration process are going to require new boundaries. They're going to require new self-concepts. They're going to require new internal permission and new nervous system tolerance. And friend, it's going to take time. You are not supposed to feel fluent in a version of yourself that you just met. It's going to be some work, right? It's going to be some work. So if you ever get to thinking, I don't quite feel like the person my life is becoming, based on trying to shrink back to the old self, you need to hear this clearly. You are not behind. Even though it may feel like you're falling behind, you are not behind. What you are doing is you're finally integrating, right? You're finally integrating. Identity doesn't update instantly. It updates through the experiences, through your repetition and safety. And if you don't have to rush that process, you don't have to rush that process. You just have to allow yourself to grow slowly into the bigger life. That's why this doesn't happen overnight. We hear too many times people of the overnight experience or the overnight success. Now, that will happen at a time. That will happen at a time. But you don't need to rush that process. All right? Sit in it. Allow yourself to grow slowly into this new, bigger life so that way your nervous system adapts to it and understands this whole entire change. So when we're talking about the expansion, it's going to require our nervous system to be ready, right? And this is something very few people will say. You can only hold what your nervous system is trained to tolerate, not what your mind desires, not what your vision imagines. Capacity for expansion grows when our safety increases, the self-trust deepens, and our regulation stabilizes. This is why people will collapse after success. It's because their life expanded faster than their identity could hold. So it is your job not to force the readiness. It is your job to build it gently. To build it gently. So when we build it gently, we start to update our self-definition. The expansion will continue, but our old self-definitions will start to slowly fall away. You may no longer be the struggler, the helper, the behind one, or the overfunctioner. And that can feel like it's grief, okay? Because you're losing all of that. They're falling away. Because even painful identities once gave you the belonging, predictability, and recognition. You're not betraying yourself by letting them go. You are starting to evolve, and that's part of the whole entire evolution. So when you're having that experience and you see the evolution occurring, if you find yourself asking, why does this feel so unfamiliar? You need to reframe that question to, what kind of person am I learning to become now? With that question shift, you are now moving from the resistance to curiosity. And through the curiosity, this is what allows the new identity to expand safely. All right, to expand safely. So you're going to go through a lot, friend. It's not going to happen overnight. It is a process. And that's why one of my favorite sayings is trust the process. Right there is a t-shirt logo. I'm going to create that today. Trust the process. Simple as that. If you need to put that on a sticky note and put that in your car, in your fridge, or in your bathroom mirror, just so that when you're going through this and you're having that moments where you feel the self-sabotaging coming on, you can look at that and say, I have to trust the process. Your nervous system will readjust and start to trust the process. Trust the process. All right. In our next episode, we're going to talk about when the visibility feels vulnerable and how being seen during the expansion can trigger fear, protection, and self-doubt. That's what we're going to talk about in our next episode. But before we end this episode, I want to leave you with this. If something in today's episode resonated with you, if you feel the quiet nudge that says there's more for me, that's not an accident. I want you to know that I've created a collection of ebooks, journals, and self-identifying shifting tools that are designed to help you stop repeating the same process or patterns and start becoming the version of who you are naturally attracted the life, peace, and abundance that you're ready for. It's not about motivation. This is about transformation, friend. And the thing is, you'll find everything inside my link tree, including Manifest Like You Mean It, Shift, and all my personal identity frameworks that our thousands are now using to rewire their mindset and step into the aligned process. You can find all of this by going to my link tree, right? It's linktree/Troy Rivera. That's linktree/Troy Rivera. And remember, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest who you are becoming. All right. Again, if this episode resonated with you, please make sure that you are hitting that follow button. You are giving us a rating. Have any comments about what your experience is or what you're learning or any questions, please feel free to do that. All right. I love it. I love to engage with my listeners and my viewers. And again, if follow me on TikTok and Instagram, my link tree is connected inside the show notes. All you got to do is click the link and you'll see everything there, right? I'm always giving out some free stuff. You might want to check that out as well too, right? All right. So remember, let me leave you with this. Remember, your life can only expand as fast as your identity can hold it. So you need to give yourself time to become who you are building. All right, friends? Exactly. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you. Well, I don't know. Maybe I might see you. I look forward to you tuning into the next episode where we'll talk about that vulnerability. All right. We're going to dive deeper. Every episode gets deeper and deeper into this process, sharing the experience for those who are considering to move from the paycheck, comfort, security, to becoming their own entrepreneur, boss, doing the things that they have purpose for, and living the life that they were truly, truly meant to live. All right, as I always say, talk to you soon.